So he tied it Wednesday night. We're recording this on Thursday, so we could be looking at another Saturday of them doing this crap, as trying to break the record. But yeah, come on, ESPN, like, grow up, okay? We want to watch college football. We don't need to see Aaron Judge hitting more home runs. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into Monkey Knife Fights College Football Preview Show, Week 5 edition. I'm Dan Watkins. Joining me, as always, John McKechnie from Rotowire.com. John, happy October, man. How's it going?
It's great. Excited to be here. You know, we're starting to get into conference play across the country now. Things are good, so I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, a very fun weekend last week. I mean, just highlighted with Oklahoma losing. We had that great A&M Arkansas game. Just a lot of fun stuff last weekend in college football. But I thought we would take a look back at September as a whole to start off this week. And let's give our best and worst of the first month of the college football season. So who do you got?
I would say that the best things from the opening month of the season, first weekend of games, specifically that early window where we had NC State and East Carolina having that insane back and forth. And then, of course, App State versus UNC. App State scoring, like 40 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was just such an electric start to the season. App State going ahead and going on the road and beating A&M. That was one of the best things from this past month. Let's see, what the worst. I feel like I did not expect the Texas-Alabama game to be good. And I feel like we were robbed of a potential Texas upsetting of Alabama just because of Quinn Ewers and the injury that happened in the first half of that game. So that kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And I feel like also one of the worst is, Jackson Smith and Jigba, just like a bunch of these like star players that we were really excited about coming into the season, kind of having slow or injury related starts to the year. So that's been the unfortunate side thus far. But otherwise, you got to give it up. It's been a great September of college football, and week 0, even back in August, was good. So, I mean, things are rolling along nicely. And I guess another best, I would argue, USC has been really, really impressive. They kind of had to escape on what kind of ended up being on closed circuit television last week. We actually had to leave the establishment that we were at to go to somebody's place that had Pac-12 network, so we could actually watch, one of the best teams in the country just narrowly escape there in Corvallis. But overall, I mean, the Lincoln Riley theory, that the swing for the fences that USC made, looks like it's they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it was a struggle trying to find the Pac-12 network last Saturday night. Like, I think I might have missed kickoff because of that. Hopefully USC is on national television and on real networks as we go forward here. But for me, I'm going to take a little bit of a different route here with my best and worst. My best of the month of September in college football, I want to give it to whoever coined and was the first person to term last Saturday night's missed field goal the oink doink. Like, that is just the English language at its finest. I mean, I'm going to remember this play now for the rest of my life. Throw it right up there on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest nicknames for single plays in college football history. You got the Hail Flutie, you got the Bush Push, you got the band is out on the field, and now we have the oink doink, John. And like, someone put the Titanic music to it too, which is just absolutely fantastic on Twitter. I think I've watched that video probably like 35 times in the last 4 days since it actually came out there. I see them making t-shirts now too. I'm not even an A&M fan, and I might go buy a t-shirt just because I love that phrase so much. I just can't get enough of it.
That's an absolute winner. Well, if again, we're picking winners from this past month, and that I think tops it all. Incredible. Like you said, English language at its best.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my worst, can I go with just the entire state of Colorado and their football programs? 0-8 combined between the Buffs and the Rams. I mean, just not good. And then I thought of another one too. Whoever at ESPN, ABC, the mothership, decided to do the cut-ins last Saturday with Aaron Judge. Like, what are we doing? Okay. Like, this was completely designed to torture college football fans because they did not do it Monday night during their NFL game with the Giants and the Cowboys. So they got something going on there where maybe they don't buy in on Clemson either, but they just want to split the screen. But I mean, we're in 2022. If I want to watch Aaron Judge, I'm going to go watch Aaron Judge. It's the same thing with the ticker too. The ticker drives me nuts. Some sports more than others. On the bottom of the screen, I have a smartphone. I can check the scores whenever I need to. I don't need you flashing them at me the entire game. So just like, I hate the cut in. I don't like it at all.
And I think college football is such a regional sport with national appeal, and I just don't feel like a lot of the people that were watching the Clemson Wake Forest game really care about the New York Yankees, let alone Aaron Judge and his home run record. So that was obnoxious, and they kept coming back to it. Of course, they had to. If you're going to do it for the first at bat, you kind of have to do it for all of them. Ended up in disappointment. And yeah, that was brutal. It was just a real read the room situation gone horribly awry there at ESPN.
And not to open up Pandora's box here, it's not even the real record. Okay, like what? It's the American League record. What are we doing?
And they're lucky that it's like the American League record.
Yeah.
So that
record. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that they're avoiding the real difficult conversation. 73.
Yeah, exactly. And now he tied it Wednesday night. We're recording this on Thursday, so we could be looking at another Saturday of them doing this crap. Trying to break the record. But yeah, come on, ESPN, like grow up. Okay, we want to watch college football. We don't need to see Aaron Judge hit any more home runs. Okay, don't care.
The Venn diagram, very, very different.
Yep.
And not a lot of overlap.
Don't care. All right. Anyways, moving on. Let's get right into our 5 furious questions for week 5. And I thought we'd start off with question 1 here with fill in the blank, John. The 4th best team in the country is?
Well, I would have said this was a slam dunk a week ago. Now I'm kind of more willing to hear arguments for 2 teams, but I still think it's Michigan. I know Michigan struggled this past week a little bit against Maryland, only won by like a touchdown. I really expected them to kind of stomp Maryland as they had their entire time under Jim Harbaugh, but I still think it's a very complete team. I think, that they simply weren't tested at all, and it's by design, basically with the schedule, the first 3 weeks of the season. So of course they steamrolled the likes of UConn and Colorado State, who you alluded to, and Hawaii as well. So to them playing an actual football team, like obviously that they kind of struggled a bit, but Blake Corum looks like a special running back. I think that McCarthy's only going to get better with more reps and, just a little bit more time out there, a little more experience. I do believe in him. I think the receivers are a little bit underrated. I really like Roman Wilson. And then the defense, still pretty nasty. Obviously not what we saw a year ago with Ajabo and Hutchinson, but still a strong unit overall. I think that they just have a little bit of a toughness / trench advantage that I wouldn't give to USC just yet. I understand where USC might have the higher ceiling because their quarterback and their offense are just at such a high level. But I think that there are some flaws that I think would undo USC. We've seen the glitz and glamour teams make it to the playoff and get punched in the mouth and it not go well for them. I don't think that happens with a team like Michigan, so that's why I give them the lean at 4.
I just can't bring myself to say Michigan's the 4th best team in the country with 3 blowout wins over Cupcakes and then a 7-point win against Maryland last week. I guess as much as we've ripped them, I guess after last week, I got to give it to Clemson right now, which they are number 4. Especially going forward here, they have a chance to really prove it this week if they can put the clamp down and beat up on NC State.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess right now I'm going to lean Clemson and then Michigan, USC, and then I saw a couple writers put Okie State at 4. Have you seen that?
That's trying to get people to talk about their rankings, and so we won't do it.
Okay, very good. We'll move on. All right, let's. But we'll stay in the Big 12 though. And is this a Hardo move or not? Question 2: Bijan Robinson carrying the football around the facility and campus because he doesn't want to fumble again. If you're watching that Texas Tech game last week, first play in overtime, Bijan Robinson fumbles. So now he spent this week carrying the football around campus and the Longhorns facility, having some teammates try to knock it out. What do you think?
I go a couple different ways on this one. Like that, we've seen this move pulled off by running backs with poorly timed fumbles before. I think back to like Rashard Mendenhall and his time with the Steelers doing that when he was a rookie, trying to endear himself to the rest of that team. I don't view this as something that's on the level of Bijan Robinson. Like, I think Bijan Robinson is too big of a star to be doing something that's kind of more, has a lot more walk-on energy than five-star energy. So I understand the, the inspiration behind it, and like trying to send out that message, like, I'm taking care of the ball. But you are Bijan Robinson. Like, yes, you screwed up last week, but come on, man. Like, you are a future top 10 pick potentially in the NFL. Like, you don't need to be doing the aw shucks type of stuff.
Yeah, I feel the same way on this one. If this was any other running back in the country, I'd be ripping him nonstop right now. But I love Bijan. I love the guy. Love the running back. Hopefully he moves on from this and we all just forget about this. And this is just like some funny little note in the great story of Bijan Robinson.
I will use it against him when we're ranking draft running backs come this spring.
Fair enough. Looking forward to that. All right, let's talk about another running back who we've talked about quite a bit on this show in the past. And I think we have found the biggest ego in college football this season, and that would be Syracuse's Sean Tucker. I don't know if you've seen this, John. Do you follow him on Twitter?
So you mentioned him to me like a couple weeks ago before we recorded, and you said that this guy's up to some strange stuff on Twitter.com, and you weren't kidding. No. He's just an odd bloke. I kind of love it, but I mean, yeah, like you said, he's out there kind of giving himself a performance review every single week to himself on Twitter, tweeting out his stat line, like you said, and he's got a hashtag that he likes to use. Anytime that you get the number trying to replace a letter in a hashtag, dating back to like Derek Jeter's respect with the two. Yeah, I mean, But anytime that you do that, that doesn't use a one like Whalen's Twitter handle, I'm just not into it. And here we are with pleased with EA replaced with 3-4 his number on his jersey. So
let me read a couple.
Unload them.
So this is last week. Friday, we won Syracuse 22, Virginia 20. I'm pleased with the outcome of the game. We made mistakes, but we are 4-0. I'm not pleased with my performance, but I'm doing my part to help the team win. The grind never stops, nor will number 34. I rushed for 60 yards and 5 receptions for 45 yards. Hashtag pleased with the 34 in the middle. But going back to last season, though, so I did a deep Twitter dive the other night.
Let's go.
He was way worse. Like, I think one of the coaches had to have said something to him last season. So this is after a loss, right, to Pitt. November 29th, 2021, we lost our last game, Pitt 31, Syracuse 14. I'm not pleased with the outcome of the game or the play calling. I wanted to do so much more, but I don't call the plays. Good luck to all the seniors moving on. Like, that is just, this is basically the only thing I can think of is this is the 2022 version of Terrell Owens in 04 on the sideline screaming, "I love me some me."
Yes.
Basically Sean Tucker on Twitter these days.
It's just so funny. Like, the Syracuse football program is just not like a national brand that really has like a lot of like spice to it. So it's funny to have like a running back who is, of this, kind of bravado that we're seeing out here out of Sean Tucker. Pretty interesting stuff, especially when it's like, yes, I had 60 rushing yards and 40 receiving yards. Like, not particularly like eye-blowing or mind-blowing statistics that he's put up these last couple of weeks, at least.
Not at all. All right, moving on. Question 4: should Kansas be ranked?
Yes. The resume is strong. I mean, they've gone ahead. That the road win over West Virginia should have kind of like made everyone raise their eyebrow. Beating Houston, I thought, was super impressive. And then, last weekend, it's Duke, like, all the basketball jokes that you could have wanted to make last weekend, you made them. Congrats, pat yourself on the back. But, at the end of the day, Kansas still came out and got the win. Jalen Daniels looks amazing. The whole theory of Lance Leipold and what he's been pushing this program towards in just a short amount of time is incredible. I mean, like, you just think about where Kansas was and how can it possibly get worse? And then the Les Miles era happens and somehow it finds a way to get worse. And now that they've kind of like scored their way out of it to a 4-0 record and looking ahead, this game against Iowa State this weekend is massive for them. I'm really, really looking forward to that. I think it's one of the games of the weekend. And yes, I just think that If you took their resume against almost anyone's, that like a 4-0 record against that slate, it should be considered. So I like them right around that same level as like a Pitt or a Syracuse, but I think that Kansas should be in there, maybe over Pitt, who does have a loss, even if it was a tough loss to Tennessee.
Yeah, I would absolutely throw them in there. And then the great Twitter account, Message Board Geniuses, just a fantastic screen grab from some Kansas message board that they someone wrote that they think they're going to be absorbed by the SEC within the next few years because they're on the come, they're on the up and come with their football program. So look out for the Jayhawks.
Think about it; they already have Vanderbilt. Like, we're better than them.
Yeah, exactly. Look out for expansion. All right. And speaking of the SEC, question 5. Is Lane Kiffin dropping hints that he's trying to bolt from Ole Miss? He's had a very interesting week. Tuesday night, he tweets out this article from the local paper there in Jackson about how that both Lane Kiffin and Mark Stoops should ignore the call if Auburn or Nebraska comes calling here in the next couple of weeks or months to bolt from either one of their programs. And then that article, though, is basically just ball washing Lane Kiffin for how great he's been at Ole Miss in the last 2+ years, how he's turned the program around, everything he's done. So basically it was like him tweeting out his resume. I took that as, and then Wednesday, in his weekly press conference, he spends the entire time berating the student section. I was playing in a high school field because they come out in the second half and all the kids have left to go get hammered in the Grove. What do you make of this?
Listen, as someone who has gone to Oxford and experienced the Grove, I don't blame the students one bit. I always hate the coaches ripping on students, especially it's not like Ole Miss has played any particularly marquee matchups yet to this point in the season. They played Troy in the opener. That last week against Central Arkansas, they had Tulane last week and everything. But I don't blame the students, and I think Lane Kiffin, I think part of his appeal is that he appeals to the younger crowd and he's fun and he kind of himself is a bit of a party guy. So for him to stick his nose up at a bunch of people who are doing the thing that has culturally been the thing to do in Oxford since the beginning of tailgating, it's just why are you? It just misses the mark, I think, in my opinion, when it comes to Lane Kiffin there. So I don't know if it's him rhetorically positioning himself for that, proverbial exit. I don't think that he is going to be at Ole Miss for forever, but I think that he probably would be looking for a job that probably has a little bit less stink on it right now than a Nebraska or an Auburn. I think, he'll wait for one of the premier jobs to open up. And I think at that point, maybe he bolts, but maybe he just does need to put that reminder in there. Does he need another coaching or contract extension to get a little higher average annual value? That's
what I was thinking too.
Yeah, angling for.
Yep, I think this was a contract play. I think he's dropping the breadcrumbs now. But that's going to bring us to our first matchup preview, and we got a big one in the SEC. Kentucky at Ole Miss, number 7 visiting number 14. It's a noon Eastern time kickoff. Mississippi is favored by 7. And let's talk about Jackson Dart. At the beginning of the season, I said this was one of my highly anticipated transfer guys that I'm watching this season. 4 games, he's averaging about 175 yards per game through the air. What do you expect out of Dart this week?
Like you said, the numbers haven't been particularly explosive just yet for Dart, and I think this is obviously the toughest test that he'll have faced to date. It does help that they're at home, even though Lane Kiffin just kind of alluded to the idea that Ole Miss not really bringing a lot of home field advantage right now. Though I do think that Vaught Hemingway is going to be packed this weekend. Dart, 13 for 24 last week, throws the 2 touchdowns against Tulsa, but the yardage not particularly appealing and barely going over 50% as far as his completion rate. He ran all over the place. He showed that athleticism a little bit as a freshman at USC and obviously has that in his bag. But Kentucky, I think, has been a little bit more battle tested, having gone down to Florida and beaten them. I know the Florida's come out on the wrong side in a bunch of different spots, but they've had one of the more brutal September schedules that you could possibly cook up to this point with the way that Kentucky and Tennessee are playing. So I think that this definitely is a huge test and a big kind of bellwether for how high we can expect this Ole Miss team to climb over the course of the season, because, Kentucky is no joke. They're extremely well coached, Mark Stoops. And, this is going to be a real battle for Dart, who really hasn't been asked to win a game just yet.
Yeah. And then on the other side, you got Will Levis. As far as I know, he has not done anything weird on social media this week as we head into this game. But Mel Kiper and Todd McShay both have said in this past week that he is a top 3 quarterback prospect. Kiper giving him the NFL comparison. I always love these, by the way. His NFL comparison is Matthew Stafford. So I don't know if that means that he's going to need Sean McVay to save him at some point, but we shall see. And then Kentucky's offensive coordinator on Thursday morning said that Will Levis is going to be the #1 overall pick in the draft. So Levis is averaging 296 yards per game through the air this season. He's gone over 300 yards in 3 of 4 games, except for that Florida game where he finished with 202. What do we see out of him this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a weird year. I mentioned the injuries as one of the things that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth in September. But, when it comes to these quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, the numbers have obviously been good, but who have they really played other than Notre Dame? I don't think a whole lot of this Wisconsin team. So the door is open, I think, for Levis to kind of enter that discussion. And I definitely scoffed at it in the days after the NFL draft last year, where it's like, Will Levis is I have been mocked in my first round. It's like, well, is it the same Will Levis at Kentucky? But no, Levis has been awesome thus far this season. There's really no way around it. He wasn't someone that you were expecting to carry that offense last year. I think Kentucky's success wasn't necessarily in spite of him last year, but it was built on the run game and Wan'Dale Robinson. Now Chris Rodriguez has been suspended for the first 4 games of the season, and no Wan'Dale, and Levis has really answered the bell. I mean, going with like a really high yards per attempt, 10.1 yards per attempt thus far, and he's throwing it a lot. Like, they are trusting him to put the ball in the air, and he's really succeeding with it. So I've been impressed with him. And I think that, he is going to be a problem for this Ole Miss defense. And, if he's not having success through the air, I think that he can have more success on the ground than we've seen thus far this year. He only has 1 game with positive rushing yardage. I think that changes in a big way this coming Saturday.
And then any skill position players in this matchup that you like? Quinshon Judkins is off to a hot start. He's averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground.
Yeah, he's been great. Ole Miss's ability to run the ball has been phenomenal, and I look for Zach Evans to potentially, kind of have a game that introduces himself to the national spotlight. He's a super talented guy, one of the few 5-star recruits from his class at the running back position. Didn't work out at TCU. I think maybe we start to see him kind of live up to all that hype this weekend against Kentucky.
Does Kentucky survive?
I'm going to say yes, actually. I think that they have a little bit more sand than this Ole Miss team. And I think they're a little, yeah, they got a little bit something to them. So, I mean, I cannot wait for this game. It's going to be one of the best of the weekend. I think it's one of the best crossover SEC matchups that we're going to get all year. And it's in the noon window. I cannot wait, but I think that Kentucky, despite being touchdown dogs, I think I'm going with the Cats.
All right. Very good. Let's move on. We got another fun SEC matchup at 3:30 Saturday afternoon. Alabama at Arkansas. Bama is favored by 17 points in this one. This is the start of a tough 6-game stretch for the Tide, by the way. They got 4 of their next 6 on the road, all SEC matchups as well. It's going to be a tough one here for the Crimson Tide. And then the quote of the week is from Will Anderson. Reading here, quote, "The audacity for the other team to even step on the field is disrespectful to me. The audacity for the fans to show up and for the team to come and step on the field and play with us," end quote. Great quote, but Will, I will point out, if they don't show up, then you're not going to play a football game. You're not going to get paid, my man. So let's maybe tone it back a little bit here on this one. So my question for you here, John, as we head into this game, and you're taking on Alabama here, let's say you're with Arkansas. Would you rather be heading into that game this weekend flying high, undefeated, or pissed off and angry after that loss in the yoink doink?
I think probably PO'd. I think that I would really like Bama to beat an undefeated Arkansas. I think a one-loss Arkansas looking to kind of save its season with a quick turnaround. I mean, brutal schedule for them to have that neutral site game against A&M, and then the following week get Alabama rolling through town. It is at home at least, so that helps things. But yeah, I would say that I'd prefer a hungrier Hogs team than one that is maybe reading its own press clippings a little bit too much. So at least they avoided the proverbial rat poison that Saban likes to talk about all the time.
All right, very good. And let's talk about Bryce Young. He's averaging 257 yards per game. He finally went over the 300 mark last week against Vanderbilt. Last year against Arkansas, John, 31 of 40, 559 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks. That's an Alabama record, by the way, for single game passing. What do we see out of Young this time around?
I think we've started to see Bryce Young, look, I think the Texas game really stands out in a lot of people's minds, and like rightfully so. Like that was an anomaly of a performance, but again, that was an anomaly. I think that, otherwise he's thrown for 3 or more touchdowns every single week thus far this season. Not that Vandy is particularly impressive to do that against or anything, but I think we start to see this Alabama offense really start to click this week. If Tyler Harrell can get back in the mix, or some of these other receivers that kind of had slower starts to the season, weeks 2, 3, and 4, the super talented group. So I think if they start to click here, then we see Young with kind of like a vintage performance that like reminds everyone that he is that Heisman level talent with future first round upside.
Yeah, the lines aren't up yet, but I already know I'm hitting the more on this one with Bryce Young. Probably doing the same with KJ Jefferson, who's averaging 235 yards per game. That big fumble last week, so he's hungry and wants to come out and shock the world Saturday afternoon at home. Last year against Alabama, 326 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. He couldn't get much going on the ground, though, which is rare for him. And this season, he has at least 1 rushing touchdown and 2 total touchdowns in each game so far this season. What do you expect out of KJ?
I think that, that Bama's going to kind of have that ability to, to
wake up.
I don't remember what I had that alarm set for. I must have. Oh well, who knows? 1:30 p.m. Eastern for the listeners out there. I must have to. Do I have to turn the oven off? No. But I think that this is a tough matchup for Jefferson. At least it's at home. I think that he is. He's been impressive, even despite the loss of Treylon Burks thus far this season. I think that continues. I think that he really puts the pressure on Alabama. I think he can do it on the ground and through the air. And I'm not sure that Bama's secondary is quite as dominant as it has been in years past. So I like whatever number KJ Jefferson's posted at, even on the passing side of things. I think he goes over 200 passing yards, which is probably roughly around where it will be. And I think he's going to have a lot of success. Guys like him, maybe you try to target his fantasy points prop more than his passing yardage prop, but either way, I do like Jefferson in the setup.
All right, very good. And then pick for this game, any chance Arkansas covers or wins?
I don't think that they can win, but I do think that they do end up covering in this spot. I think, again, if Bama plays its A game, they can certainly cover this number, but I think that I have to give Arkansas a little bit more respect than I did coming into the year, and that's even after a loss last week to an A&M team that I think has some significant limitations, but is still a tough team overall. So I think Arkansas keeps this one close.
All right, very good. And let's our last full contest preview here is the Textile Bowl. North Carolina State at Clemson. That's a 7:30 kick. Clemson is favored by 6.5. Little fun note for you, John. The Tigers are playing in their 27th top 10 matchup all time. The Wolfpack are playing in their first ever top 10 matchup. They are ranked number 10. Clemson is number 5. Whatever is left of Hurricane Ian could impact this one Saturday night. The odds makers are definitely taking a look at that, as the total for this game is just 40.5. Both these teams are averaging their 30s. So what do we see? What do you expect out of these two quarterbacks, DJU and Devin Leary?
Well, first, I mean, speaking of games with Hurricanes and North Carolina State, am I bringing up any Notre Dame bells for you? That was the Deshaun Kaiser game where Notre Dame tried to throw 30 times in a hurricane?
Yeah, there was that one. There was one in Clemson, which we talked about last week with the bring your own guts. I mean, there's a lot of just bad hurricane memories in college football on Saturday nights. But anyways, move on. Go ahead.
As you were, sir. But Clemson, their offense way outperformed my expectations last week. And how much of that was their own doing? and how much of it was Wake Forest just not having those playmakers in the back end to slow down Clemson. I think we get our answer this week. I think NC State is a legit test for them. I think they're top 10 defensively in S&P plus or SP plus. So this is going to be tricky for Clemson. I as much as I've kind of hated Clemson and like the current shape that they're in, where the offense generally isn't all that explosive, I just think that they are that tough. I know that they just gave up a ton of points on that game against Wake Forest, but I don't think NC State has that offense that scares them. So, like you said, that this total plummeting, and I think rightfully so. And I think in a defensive battle, even if NC State's defense is very, very good, I still like Clemson to have the edge in this one. So unlike last year where NC State got the win, I think, fortune flips this time around. The home team gets the win. It's Clemson.
DJ, you threw for over 300 yards last week for the first time in almost 2 years.
I could not believe what I was seeing.
Any chance he does it again?
Not even close. No, okay. That will be one of the great blips on the radar from his season.
All right, very good. Moving on, let's get to our speed round here. John, we'll start off with Louisville quarterback Malik Cunningham. They're at BC at the Heights Saturday afternoon. 27.5 fantasy points for Cunningham, more or less.
That's a high bar, but there are a few other quarterbacks that I would trust to do it more than Malik Cunningham. And sadly, and this isn't even me poking fun because I liked BC coming into the year, but BC's a good team to be going against. So I like Cunningham going more than 27.5.
Yeah, living in the Boston area, I got an alert this week from SeatGeek, and it was like, hey, check out Louisville, take on Boston College Saturday for $8. Yeah, I'm going to pass on that. I'll watch on TV. Zay Flowers, BC's wide receiver, 78.5 receiving yards, more or less.
I mean, he's on a 12 target per game pace. It's just hard to bet against Zay. I mean, he's really the only bright spot for this Boston College team right now. But so that kind of means that he's not running into a ton of space and making the big plays that he's capable of. But target volume's so good that I like more than 78.5.
All right, Michigan running back Blake Corum at Iowa. This should be just, I'm sure, a riveting matchup on Saturday. 75.5 rushing yards for Corum, more or less.
I do wonder if Harbaugh sent his equipment guys there early to cover up the pink locker room like he's done in the past over at Kinnick. But 75.5, Corum coming off of that like kind of record-setting day this past week. Iowa's defense obviously really, really good, but I think Corum gets fed enough. Well, I would wait if you're playing this contest to see what Donovan Edwards' status is, because that could change whether Corum has like the monopoly on this backfield. But as it stands, I think Corum is just running too well right now. I'll take the more.
All right. Iowa's quarterback, Spencer Petras, 140.5 passing yards, more or less. And say something nice about Iowa's quarterback.
Oh, he might be that. Like I probably have like an easier time saying something nice about Noah Vedral than I do about Spencer Petras. Like I'm going to say something nice by not saying anything at all when it comes to Spencer Petras. And as for the 140.5, I'm not going to be surprised if he gets pulled. I think that if Iowa falls behind by more than one score, they go to Padilla, they get the same results, but at least they can say that they tried.
All right, very good. Moving on. Adrian Martinez, he's coming off that monster game, shocking Oklahoma last week versus Texas Tech. This weekend, 21.5 fantasy points, more or less. I like the more. This is going to be a fun one. Big 12 is shaping up so well this year. There's so many fun, interesting teams out there. Kansas, K-State now, of course, kind of putting itself back on the map. Martinez is going to be a little bit touchdown dependent. You don't expect him to throw a ton of yardage here, but if he can continue to be that vulture down by the goal line, it makes sense for K-State because at the end of the day, he is a lot bigger than Deuce Vaughn. So that works a little better towards the goal line. So with that in mind, more than 21.5 fantasy points for Adrian Martinez. All right, and I'm going to give you the last two here together because they're playing each other. Texas A&M, Mississippi State. This game is at College Station. Will Rogers at A&M, 262.5 passing yards, and Max Johnson on the other side at home, 192.5 passing yards. I'm going to go with less for Max Johnson, and I'm going to go with more for Will Rogers. He just, they just throw the ball so darn much that, anything under 300, I'm going to kind of like go against it. Even a couple weeks ago against LSU when he threw for 214, I think he, looks a little bit better this time around against A&M, even with it,
against a good Aggies defense.
All right, very good. Before we wrap things up, who's getting upset this weekend?
Ooh, the upset watch. So let's see here. I kind of had a few off the beaten path ones. Coastal Carolina undefeated so far, but I think Southern gives them a really interesting test. I think Cincinnati gets tested going down to Tulsa. And I don't expect this kind of is a litmus test for Auburn, but and like, you know, what the power of Jordan Hare Stadium, but LSU has to be careful. That I think that LSU wins, and I think Auburn is terrible, but weird things have happened in that game. Weird things have happened in that rivalry. Team that shouldn't have any business competing can sometimes come out on top. So at the very least, LSU needs to be muy cuidado in this one.
I like it. They're on be careful watch. All right. Very good. That's going to do it for us this week, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page at Monkey Knife Fight, and good luck in your contest this week.